So, does it take to actually write a pitch deck? We're going to start off with the most important part. I'm going to introduce myself, and my co-founder is going to introduce himself, Ahmed. And this is the cornerstone of every good pitch is the founders themselves. And why is that? Because at such a young, especially if you're at the pre-seed or seed phase, the founder profile kind of is the cornerstone of actually getting the check-in. And there are a couple of things that go into it. So if you come from a target experience or a target school, then that kind of carries into your pitch itself. If you don't, and you come from a background that's within the actual industry, then that can carry the pitch and actually convince the check writers, which are the VCs, the VC loans, the debitors, the creditors, etc., to actually buy into your experience and not just the idea itself. But if you don't have both, then you have to focus a lot on your traction and your previous experience as a founder, even if you failed before, which is a normal occurrence within our industry. So a bit of background about myself. I'm going to do exactly what I'm saying. My name is Omar. I come from a finance and also a CS background when I did my master's in CS. Right now, I'm doing my master's in Harvard in management. I come from an IB, investment banking and consulting background. And over the last 8 years, me and Ahmed, my co-founder, have shipped uh, four different startups or products, if you want to call them that, from basically context-aware moderation agents to prediction markets, and now an agently, which is our hardest endeavor. We're shipping company brains. As for my co-founder, Ahmed, he is a state-of-the-art enterprise engineer. He's worked with SAP as a software engineer for the last couple of years. He ships enterprise systems at scale, and he's built every single layer Agently runs on, while we back and forth between the cycle of feedback and actually building for our users. Now, down to the actual agenda of today, we're going to cover two different things. So, one misconception is you send the exact same pitch deck to every single person. And that's kind of false because that just eases up on you what you think you need to do. And it's false under many different pretenses. First of all, the pitch deck that you send in a cold email or in a submission form or even in a DM should not exceed 10 different pages. Okay, that's part one. And part two is if someone is actually interested in your 10-page pitch deck, you need to cut it down to 4 pages. And there are actually only three real slides that you actually need to cover while you're actually in an interview or a screening call. And that goes into a YC interview, your first interview, that is, or your a16z interview, like the one we had, or any sort of VC interview that you actually have. You have to be very concise, extremely concise, more than anyone is even comfortable with, even more than I'm comfortable with. And you have 10 minutes to actually make $1 million deal. That's a lot of leverage over 10 minutes. And you need to be very aware of every single point that the interviewer wants to know, that the VC is looking for, and that you want to cover within those 4 slides in the interview deck. The 10-page pitch deck gets you through the door. The interview deck actually closes the deal. And we're going to go through both. And then we're going to talk about the idea itself, which is agently. We're going to tell you why the idea is kind of the cherry on top. And I think my co-founder is going to do a good job of covering that. So first of all, there are 6 rules. These are, of course, my rules. You could probably find others and other founders' experiences, but I like to stick to one claim per slide. Why? Now. Why is that? Is because you're the one doing the pitch. The actual presentation or the actual deck itself is only there as a supplementary look for the person who's speaking to you. If you're kind of cluttering everything into one slide, you're going to lose interest. Now, imagine yourself on TikTok or Instagram or even Twitter. Most of you guys are on Twitter probably. Your attention span is around maybe 6 to 7 seconds, and that goes for every single person in this industry, every single business professional. Everyone's busy, everyone's kind of in their context switching between loads of different things, especially VCs and especially founders. So to ease up on this, you need to be as concise as you can possibly can and have one claim per slide. And I'm going to show you examples as we go forward. Second up is a mock-up as the hero. Every single slide on your deck has to have a visual component. You have to leverage visuals to tell the story without you having to say one word. So if I send a 10-page pitch deck to someone, they do not need to read every single supporting text in order to understand the idea of what I'm trying to do. So that's why you have to leverage every single sort of tool that you have at your disposal right now, and you have many. And we can get into what kind of tools you can use to actually build a very good looking pitch deck, like our presentation here, because your images are what's going to carry your pitch deck, and your graphics are going to what's going to carry your pitch deck and make the actual booking for your next meeting. And now that's the first and foremost, that's the most important goal and objective of your first 10-page pitch deck. And please avoid, this is rule number 3, please avoid anything as revolutionary, state of the art, enterprise, groundbreaking. Stop trying to use marketing. No one's falling for it. No one likes to be sold anything. Use your own founder's voice. And besides a pitch deck itself, your startup and your product have to have your essence in them in order for anyone to give a bet on you. How can I give as an investor? Now switching sides from a founder to investor, how am I supposed to bet on someone unless the startup is tied to their essence? And that comes to their background, the pain points they solve in a regular basis, whether that's on a personal end or on a professional end, whether that's their geography, if you're first sort of from a certain place where it demands this sort of solution, then you have a first-hand experience of not having that solution because the country lacks these resources or whatever. It could be so many different things. Just make sure you tie yourself into the actual product and you tie the product back to yourself, and there's a story behind it. I'm a founder. I went through one, two, three, four, five, and this is why I'm solving this problem. Now, this is to do with your pitch deck and to do with the actual company. Okay. That being said, sorry, we'll take questions at the end of it. Write them down, and we'll take them. Please mute all your mics, please. There's one person whose mic is open. Okay, I'm gonna mute you. There we go. Okay, so rule number 4, I like to go for a dark editorial. So you see how dark this is because every single piece of text, every single color that you use kind of pops out. And you want to use your color schemas to actually uh, guide the user's eye to see certain things that you want them to see. And then you have, for example, the white stuff as supplementary notes. If they want to see them, it's a like to have, not a must have. So, for example, in this presentation, you see that I'm highlighting things in purple. I'm guiding your eyes to read certain things, and I'm having supplementary text which you can read or you cannot need to read. So it's kind of focusing on what's important and highlighting things for the reader himself to be able to skim the document. You have to make your documents, whether that's a document, a presentation, even a tweet, you have to make it very skimmable and interesting enough for someone to read more. So we have that in mind as well. Again, supporting rule 1, each slide has to answer one question, and we're going to get through what questions you need to answer in every single slide so you don't have to guess for yourself. And then 10 slides. 10 slides, no 30 slides, not 15, not 11, 10 slides plus a title page. And if you want to include an ask, because right now when you're applying for a16z or YC, it's a $500,000 check, no exception. But if you're applying to outside VCs and you're trying to raise rounds outside these accelerators, then it becomes 11 slides. You have the title page, 10 slides, and then you have an ask. The ask is what you're gonna ask for. For example, $10 million for 10%, whatever. All right, let's move on. So for Agently, this was the basis of our pitch deck. We have the cover, okay? We have the problem, and you really need to understand the problem. We're going to get to this in episode 2, episode 3. Again, something I didn't cover at the beginning of this call is that this is a 10 episode series where we're going to cover a lot of different things. And one of them is how to define your problem, which goes into ICP, etc. A lot of terms if you already heard it before. So you have to define your problem very concisely. Then you have to define the bet itself. What do you believe that the others don't? What makes you special in the idea that you're trying to build or the product that you're trying to build? Then you go into the nitty-gritty, which is the architecture, how it all works. This is going to be very easy for you guys because probably most of you have either a coder or a vibe coder background. For us, our architecture is decided in a diagram just because we want to be more visual focused rather than just speak. And during the interview, then we can speak all we want based on what points we want to cover. So for the architecture, we combine the brain. We build company brains for people, the command center, how to orchestrate the brain, and then output layer, which is pages. Then we cover the market itself. And this is the biggest loss of most pitch decks that I see. I've reviewed around 100 over the last couple of months, and people always get the market wrong. There's three different things you need to cover in your market slides. So it's the TAM, which is the total addressable market, the SOM, the serviceable observable market, and the SAM. Each one of these have to be actually calculated or you're going to be laughed at. If I go in and I say, oh, my TAM is $100 billion, and my immediate market that I'm going to penetrate over the next 36 months, which is my SAM, is whatever, $200 billion, I'm not going to be taken seriously. And this all depends on your ICP, by the way. So this ties back to the problem itself. And you need to, this is probably the most important slide to make sure that your bet is big enough for other people to invest in. It's your thesis. And if your bet is not big enough to be invested in by a VC, then you're looking in the wrong place. You might be looking for a loan, or you might be looking for a creditor, or even a line of credit from a bank, etc. VCs only invest in big bets. If your solution, no matter what it is, cannot cover at least $1 billion of serviceable observable market in the next 36 months, then you cannot raise with the VC. It's just completely impossible because they're taking the risk at the end of the day, and you're the one who's taking the risk to actually build. So you have to make sure that your problem that you're solving, the bet that you're betting, is big enough for people to take the risk in investing in you. YC, A16Z, and every single VC included. And you guys, if you have any questions about any of this, write them down because we're gonna have 20 minutes at the end. Traction is extremely important, especially if you don't come from a founder background or you don't come from, let's say I was an AI engineer at Google, then that can raise around by itself. If I came from Stanford, I'm a dropout and I have some traction, then that can raise it around by itself. But if I have nothing, if I have no target school, like I said at the beginning, and no experience, and I'm not a previous founder, and I haven't really proved myself, then traction is your biggest asset. And in our next episode, and we can cover this later, we're going to teach you how to go from idea to revenue. But traction is your biggest asset. And traction comes in many different ways. You can go from wait lists, you can pre-sell, you can open up for beta pricing, you can do so many different things to prove that you got traction. And remember, different sorts of traction get different sorts of weight. So if I have one enterprise client with an ACV, an annual contract value of 100K, that one client I can raise a whole bunch of rounds from. But if I have a SaaS model for subscription base and only I'm making people pay whatever, 19 bucks a month, then I'm gonna need around maybe around 500 people to actually prove that I have product market fit. So it all depends on the problem and the bet and the ICP, the market, and then it translates into traction and how much traction you need in order to raise and in order to flex your product, in order to convince the person to give you money, in order for them to buy into your vision. It all depends on slide 2, slide 3, and slide 8. Okay? Very important. Last but not least, it's the team. And this is a make it or break it here. You have to actually like they have to have a good bet over here, over the 1 to 2, 3, 8, and 9. You have to do a good job. But if you don't have a good story, like I told you at the beginning, a good story goes a long way. And they want to see tenacity. People buy and people invest in people that they like. And you can have all the best traction in the world, and you can have the best previous experience. You can come from target schools. If you're not going to show tenacity, grit, confidence, and persistence, and show them in a way that's convincing and real, then you can kiss any round goodbye. Because there's going to be a lot of problems internally, problems externally, competitors, politics, etc. And the VC wants to hedge their risk based on a person who's not going to be complaining about what if. It's going to be how am I going to solve this and not if I can solve this. So you need to demonstrate yourself as an outlier and actually be honest about it and actually do what you say you do. And that's why I always like to tell people to build something that's relating to their experience in life, because that's how things become unnegotiable. You can see at the bottom here, these are all different names for different slides, but at the end of the day, you're trying to Cyril, please let's keep the questions at the end because I'm sure you guys have many. But we'll get to each and every one and we'll have a conversation, not through chat. But in any case, this is you can take a guess and think, okay, I need to hook the reader in. I need to tell them what I'm all about. I'm going to tell them what my product is, what my mode is, basically the market, the traction, etc. And then the proof, the traction, the team, the vision. And this is just any sort of pipeline to convince anyone of anything through any sort of means. So whether that's content, whether that's video, whether that's a sit down, a lunch, an email, you're always trying to be as concise as possible, hook the reader in, get them interested, and then you can get to the nitty gritty, the thesis, the product, the mode, the proof, and then you can basically answer the question about why us? Why is it us? Because even for agently, there's a lot of people are going to pursue the same problem. So when I go into an interview or even I'm running a pitch deck, I need the people to understand why is it me that's going to win, not why is this product good or why the market needs it, etc. People already know by the time they reach the why us portion, they already know why your product exists and why you're trying to build it. And the last question, which is the most important one, is why is it you that needs to build this? Okay, so this is a few examples from our deck itself. So you can see most of the rules that I gave you kind of displayed here. Visually first, you really don't need to read anything beyond the title and see the visual to really understand what we're doing. So this is our architecture page. So you see in slide number 4, we have our architecture page. Architecture is super simple. Kanban orchestrator, autonomous knowledge graph, agent builds output. So, and you can see all the different connectors that we have to signify that we connected basically everything. And we say one brain, one orchestrator, bidirectional MCPs. Super easy to understand. I don't need to explain anything more than this. If they want to go ahead and read those supporting lines that I've written for them, they can go for it, but they really don't need to. Second of all, a knowledge graph, a temporal knowledge graph that links everything, timestamp everything, and validates documents. I could write a whole pitch deck just about our brain. I can write a whole 72-page thesis paper just about the brain that we built. But I don't have that time. I don't have the time to convince people with a 72-page document or a 10-page exclusive about what I'm doing, or even a tweet. So what am I going to leverage? The use of graphics. And the graphic here is extremely strong. It takes you by surprise. You want to look at it more. It's hooking you in. And then if you'd like more explanation, you can either ask me as the founder, or you can read a little bit. And if you need more information, you can book a call with me. And now I've hooked you in to next call, which is the job of every single founder. One thing I want to add, usually in order to close a round, whether it's YC, a16z accelerators or any other VC, you're not trying to close the analyst or the partner or the general partner on that set call. Your whole objective is to get on the next call. And that's what you need to be preparing for. How am I going to leave this call with the next call booked? How am I going to leave this call with the people curious enough to learn, to want to learn more? Okay, well, you gotta give enough and not give it too much. You gotta be right in the middle. It's extremely difficult, but we're gonna get into the interview deck, which is gonna kind of give you an idea of how to do this. But your whole and sole objective is to get to the next call, not to close the round. If you try to close the round, you're gonna look salesy. You're gonna start using marketing language. You're gonna start over talking, which they don't like. So just take into consideration that you're going to have around 3 to 4 calls. First one being an email, and then you're going to get your first screening call. Your first screening call is going to be extremely difficult and extremely fast, 10 minutes. That's all you have. Sorry, give us a second. Give me 1 second. Sorry, guys.
Right, guys. I'm not sure what happened with Omar. I think he's experiencing some technical difficulties. I'm gonna check in with him. He should be back in a couple minutes.
I'm back. I'm back. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Perfect. So where were we? Yes. So when you're actually presenting your slides, focus on visually attractive graphics that tell your story. Have your supplements on the second on the left, right, down, up, doesn't really matter. And make sure that you're always trying to keep the reader focused to the next slide. So it's next slide by next slide. You're always trying to leave something for them to see on the next slide so they can learn more. And at the end of your pitch deck, you need to be curious enough to book the next call. On your first screening call, you need to leave them curious enough to book you on the second call. The second call is usually easier. You get 30 minutes. You're a bit more relaxed. You don't need to be as concise. It's more of a conversation. Um, so stay as Always remember this. Okay? Hook, thesis, product. Always hook, thesis, product. And every single slide you're going to have apply this sort of methodology. And in every single pitch deck, it's going to be hook, thesis, product. And in every single call, you're going to go from hook, thesis, product, even in the call itself. Just keep that in mind. And you can use this for content. You can use this for video content. You can use this for Twitter. It's just how to wheel people in and then how to convince them. And that's taking into consideration that you have actually a good product, which I want to hear you guys talk about your products. Now, on to the interview reality. You get 10 minutes. You got 6 minutes to make your slide, to make your pitch. 6 minutes. You have 6 minutes to talk about to demo your product, to talk about your traction, to talk about your market, to talk about why it's you to win. Yeah, I got 6 minutes. So the demo is gonna be around 1 to 2 minutes, and then every single slide after that is 1 minute each, 1 minute each. And they're gonna be interrupting you. They're gonna be interrupting you, they're gonna throw you off, they're gonna ask you questions that have nothing to do with what you're trying to present. They're not gonna make it easy for you whatsoever. And they wanna the bottom line here for the screening call, they don't give a shit about your product. Let's be real here. They already had your pitch deck, so they already went through it and they're interested enough to book you the next call. So they already got those 10 pages that they saw that we talked about a minute ago. But they want to see how you handle yourself in a tough environment. And if you cannot steer the conversation, they'll try to steer it away from you. They're going to ask you questions that you did not prepare for. They're going to ask you things that are not on the slide. You might be talking about market and they're going to ask you about why it's you. And you're going to be wanting to tell the story like you imagined it and you wrote these 4 slides before going into into the actual presentation. And then they're trying to make you skip certain things that you don't want to skip. You need to be ready to showcase yourself under immense pressure. You got 6 minutes to convince someone to give you $1 million. And that's all it takes. And within the 4 minutes, they're gonna start after your 6 minutes, they're gonna start wanting to dig into anything that they have any sort of interest about. This is gonna be more to do with your actual product, less to do with you. The questions here are gonna be to do with you because they want to trip you up and they want to see how you handle it. They want to see how you answer certain questions. And there is a right answer, by the way. And I'll give you some tips and tricks in a second. And in this one, they're going to actually be speaking about your 10-page presentation. So it's not going to have anything to do with your presentation that you made for the interview itself. It's going to be questions that they've already designed even before they went into the actual call. They might have a few that they got from you during the call itself, especially if you kept things back and you wanted to surprise them with new information to make your pitch even more convincing. But um, this is usually gonna be relating to your first 10-page document. So when you finish from here, from the first 6 minutes, you're kind of good already because you're gonna be able to expect what questions they're gonna ask. But these are like the 6 minutes of hell. And they're gonna ask you about like you're gonna be in the middle of talking about your traction and your market, and they're gonna ask you how do you price your product? And you're not really in that mindset because you have the next slide upcoming and you've already prepared yourself in a certain way. Or they're gonna ask you what happened when you and your co-founder had an argument. We saw this tweet, we put it up. He said one, two, three, four, five, etc. What did you mean by that? You're gonna have to be extremely self-aware and extremely quick to really answer these questions. Now, this is usually more prevalent in accelerators. So if you really want to make it a16z into YC, into Google Ventures, the whole list. You guys probably know a couple of them as well. This is the framework that they use because they invest blindly in 100 different stuff. So for example, A16Z spends $70 million every year on their speedrun program. Um, sorry, YC gets around 400 startups a year and invests 500K in each. That's crazy. And they have around 40 to 50,000 applications. Only around maybe 2,000 get interviews. And then from these 2,000, only 100 make it in. So your chances of getting in are extremely low. And that's just the nature. I'm not trying to disincentivize you. But knowing these different things sets you apart. Having good 10-page pitch deck gets you the interview. Having good interview gets you the second interview. If you get a second interview, more likely than not, you're getting that round. So have that mentality and try to be as ready as possible to engulf the realization of your actual company and make it a part of you so you can answer every single question without having to think about it. I hope that makes sense. So what does the four-slide pitch deck and the interview actually entail? You have the demo, traction, bet, team. Now, this is a mistake I did. I advise you to record your demo. Do not do a live demo unless they ask you to during the actual call. Do a recorded demo because at least you have allocated time for the rest of these three slides. If they start asking you questions during the live demo, tell you to do this, do that, you're not gonna have enough time to cover these. They're gonna penalize you for it. So do the demo, record it, have it be 1 minute at best, 2 minutes at worst. That's your minimum maximum. And have it cover everything and have an aha moment during your demo. And what that means is people are looking for outcomes. There are a lot of solutions that are like deep tech that don't have direct outcomes. A company brain is one of them. But what we decided to show them is how skills are extracted from a company brain. So what we did is we fed the company brain live a simulated data set, and from the patterns of the company, we came up with skills, and those skills became automated workflows, and we showed that all, and it was really good. But it took us 2 minutes and a half, so we only had another 3 minutes and a half to cover the rest. And when I went into traction, I got through it very quickly, so that was good. And when I went to the bet, they started asking me all sorts of questions. So be ready to actually go through a 6 minute war because that's how it really felt. And again, your job here isn't to revolutionize and to really convince them that you're gonna make the $1 million today and they need to give you the money now. Your whole thing is to get to the next call. So take it step by step. Don't try to bite more than you can chew. So again, the traction showcase one metric of traction that really sets you apart. Don't start showing them you can show them visually different sorts of traction, of course. But when you're pitching, you pick one piece of traction that you're trying to do everything to satisfy. It could be week-on-week growth, it could be user activation, it could be revenue goals if it makes sense for your product, etc. Choose one piece of traction, showcase whatever you want on that slide. Don't make it too much either, but focus on one to talk about and move on immediately. They don't give a shit. They already read your 10-page pitch deck. And the bet itself is your thesis. And this shows how well you understand the VC that you're pitching for. So if the VC itself has a certain sort of thesis for the year and you're trying to get in pitching something out of their scope and you have no idea how this fits into their portfolio, you just look unprofessional. So make sure you plant your thesis, you plant your category into what they want and then relate it back to your team and how you're gonna win. So this is the de-risking portion. So I call it de-risk. The reason why you de-risk is because they're spending money on anyone that makes it. And the de-risking portion is the bet at the end of the day is on you. Your company is so young that it can die off. Your company is so young that it can pivot into a completely different product. But the only thing that stays constant is that you're the one building it. So the team is probably the most important sort of slide and sort of discussion to kind of become an expert on. And do this mental exercise at home. Keep talking to yourself until you know how to convince someone that you're the right founder. And keep doing that. It's reps, it's a rep game. You got to repeat it all day until you convince yourself that this is the best way I'm going to pitch myself. This is why, this is my story, this is my co-founder's story, this is how we work well together, and this is why we're the best team to build this. This is the most important slide on any pitch deck, and this is what closes rounds. The team is what closes rounds, not the product, not even the traction. They play a role, of course. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but it's the team that de-risks the investment. Now, here are some basically some slides from our four-slide pitch deck. So this is the opener. This is the workspace running. We show a Kanban board of how our agents orchestrate through our brain. And then right from this, we went into a demo. So this was like 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and then we went into the demo itself. And this is our traction, for example. We showed that we have 1,490 people on our wait list. From cohort 1, we had 40 people, and cohort 2, we have 250 people. So we had a 6.25x. Okay, and basically we had one registered enterprise. Thank God. This was like a supporting clause because we got a senior Amazon team, our only enterprise client, to use our product, besides the mostly small, medium-sized startups and many solo and small team founders like such as yourselves who make the most of our product. Now, again, very visual, no need to actually read anything. I kind of lay out everything for you. At a very quick look, you can really tell what we're trying to do. And their focus is on me. And that's what should be the case. Like the focus is on me right now, you guys are probably listening to my voice more than you're looking at the actual slide. Um, that's how it's supposed to be as well when you're trying to pitch. The focus is on you, not the slide itself. The slide is like a supplementary sort of distractor, and it's you that's actually making the pitch. Now, what things would I not repeat based on my own and my co-founders' experiences? Even before going in, we had a discussion with a couple of alumni members from a16z, and they stressed on being concise. But even after that, I felt like we weren't concise enough. First of all, I had 2 sentences per slide. I would make that into one sentence. You got one sentence per slide. Do not elaborate more than you should. Even if they ask you a question and you feel like you need to describe all these different variables to answer the question, that just shows them that you don't know how to answer the question. Even though if you might actually know the answer, you need to learn how to answer the question with one response in one sentence and not elaborate anything more. If they want to know more, they'll ask you further questions. Stop trying to guess what they need to know and answer the question immediately. That also goes for clients as well, not just for investors. So answer as much as the question needs you to, and stop trying to elaborate and fill the silence with words. Once you finish, you leave it up to them or you continue your pitch. You do not elaborate more than you should because all that shows them is you don't know how to answer the question. And all these different things are, they're trying to see if you're the right person to bet on. Again, it has nothing to do with your product. It has nothing to do with your answer, even. It's just how you answer what's way more important than the actual answer itself. Of course, you have to have good traction, good market, you have to have a good idea, etc. But those don't differentiate you whatsoever. When they're asking you for an interview and they're trying to book an interview with us, they already expect you to have good traction, they expect you to have a good product, and they expect you to be a genius. And that's who you're competing with as well. They expect every single person who got accepted to fulfill these three different benchmarks. And that's just the minimum. That's just you're walking through the door with these three different attributes. What sets you apart is exactly what I'm telling you throughout this presentation. Now, open with your product immediately. We opened, of course, like I told you in the last slide, with our workspace running. It shifts the room, it sets a tone, it shows confidence. And what I would do, rather than doing a live demo, although I said here lead with a live demo, I would go for a video. And that's an advice no one would ever tell you. I'll tell you for like with 100% confidence, for your first ever um, sort of interview, lead with a video because now they will probably follow up with you and tell you, do you have a live link we can use? Can you give us a walkthrough in the next call? They're more likely to book you into the next call to actually dig deep into your platform. So lead with the video, cover something interesting, have an aha moment in your video, and then do the next three different slides. The ones being traction, bet, and team. And most important of all, be extremely concise in your presentation and in the way you answer questions. Stop talking before they interrupt you. So a confident pitch is a pitch that is very calm and it gives only enough in order for them to come back and ask you, I give you questions. If your interview doesn't ask any question, that's not a good sign for you. Don't think that if they didn't ask any good question, that means you covered everything. It just means they're not interested enough. And you didn't do anything that's out of the norm for them to even be curious. So you're trying to say just enough for them to ask the right questions. And there's a trick for this, by the way. You can actually demo this with a few friends and with a few people who are kind of close. Founders are usually the best people to actually have interview demos with and mock-ups. You need to basically funnel them into questions that you already have answers for. So within your actual slides, you're kind of leaving room for questions to be asked, just so you can have the best case scenario of expecting which questions. So one way to do that is to discuss certain traction numbers, but not elaborate on them. Elaborate on the one that you want to talk on, and then you're like, okay, what about those? Now you already know the data, and you funneled them into asking those questions. They did not have those questions pre-planned, so that's you imposing on them a some sort of like a funnel for them to ask you questions you already prepared for. So be very confident about that and have that written into your pitch deck. Now, I'd like to basically tie this all up in one last slide that talks about the idea. At the baseline of every single pitch deck is the idea that you're working with. Your team, we talked about the team, we talked about the traction, we talked about the market, we talked about you, yourself, and how you present. We talked about how the pitch deck is actually a supplementary sort of variable that actually you elaborate on and not the other way around. And the last piece of the pie, which is actually the first most important piece of the pie, is the idea that you have. So Ahmed, you want to take it from here? You can go ahead.
Sure. Actually, to open up with an interesting fact, the slides you guys are seeing right now and the pitch deck that we built was actually built using Agently, using one of the skills that we recently released. So we have introduced a concept of skills similar to how Cloud Code operates. And basically, we were able to leverage that in order to build our pitch deck and to build whatever slides we wish to present to you guys or investors in the future. So to speak a bit about what Agently is and its inception, it's important maybe to understand how things started and the importance of the evolution of the project. So Agently started off as something very different to what it is currently today. It actually started off as more of an agent builder. And then we had realized that we weren't getting much interest being within that niche. So we had to pivot into something more of a workflow orchestrator. And then we realized we've been working on Agently for about 2 years now. And with the continuous iterations that we've had, we always had something in mind, which is we were trying to anticipate the next step in the market or what to build towards. We're trying to build 6 months ahead of what's currently available within the market, because you always want to think ahead whenever you're planning, whether it's technical deliverables or the company's roadmap or whatever you have in mind. It needs to have some form of vision or some form of overall thesis that you're building towards. So luckily for us, we had managed to stumble upon two categories which YC had released within their startup batch, within their thesis for startups. So YC releases I think quarterly, they release a bunch of thesis that they ask startups to work on, basically their problems, and they're looking for people to build out these solutions for these problems, and they would technically fund them. So luckily for us, we had pivoted into a form of work OS. And the concept of work OS was actually, we had stumbled upon this prior to YC even releasing it. Now it's more of a buzzword, I guess, if you search it online. But I remember me and Omar were actually talking about this at one point, and I was arguing against going for the work OS while he was arguing for a work OS. I was more on the workspace side of things. Um, However, he mentioned that it is a category worth diving into because for SEO reasons at the time it was very empty. So we would have had a lot of advantage just being within that. And he actually turned out to be right because 6 months later, YC released the exact term. And now if you search it online or if you do an SEO search, you can find this term is like heavily populated compared to where it was 6 months ago. And the point of what I'm saying right now is basically that you need to be, for example, for the case of YC and for the case of a16z, I think a big portion of why we were able to get an interview was because we already had a great story in terms of how things evolved from inception to evolution to continuously applying to these programs and them seeing the evolution of the project and them seeing the founders' growth over time and how the founders have changed the ideas and they've stayed on course. They've stayed on course. However, the idea changed as the market became matured and demanded a different direction. So it's very important to really change with time as the market grows and ensure that you document every step that you guys take accordingly and use it and leverage it to your own advantage. So that's exactly what we did for Agently, and that's, I think, how it really helped us land the a16z interview. Similarly for YC, it is the exact same path. I would say even if you're applying for VCs, apply with intention. Do not just randomly apply. Do your research. Research the interviewees that are going to be interviewing you guys as well, or who you're going to be speaking with. Ensure that you go into the call knowing exactly what you want to speak about, exactly who this person is, what he's invested in previously, what kind of ventures he tends to lean towards. Because looking back into our a16z interview as well, we had researched the people interviewing us, and luckily for us also, the person interviewing us, he tends to favor his investments towards B2B AI solutions as well, so it worked in our favor. But we went in prepared, so that really helped us. Everything we've done so far has been very well orchestrated, and we used every bit of pain point we've come through throughout this journey in order to somehow tie it into one story or experience that we can share with whoever we're presenting towards. So to give you guys an idea of what Agently is, it was inspired from issues and pain points that me and Omar had faced on a day-to-day basis. So we noticed we were using ClickUp at the time also, and we noticed it was too much overhead for a startup of our size of two people just getting started, not any revenue, not much traction. There was too much going on for no reason. And we were looking for a simpler solution in the market, and we couldn't really find anything that met our needs at the point. And being a young startup with a small team, you guys really want to try and get as much or cram as much work in as possible and try to move the needle every day. That's something I think we sort of abide by internally, which is where we're always trying to optimize the way we work, me and him. And we always are oriented towards moving the needle, whether it's 1% every day. Something has to happen that's going to move things forward. So Agently is designed around this exact concept of moving the needle forward every day. And to give you guys an idea of what we do, we have built some form of a company brain, which ingests all your data throughout different connectors, whether it's Google Drive, Slack, PDFs, uploads. We ingest all your data. We update it on a daily basis. We ensure it's all fresh. We create a live map of your company. And then we couple that with an agentic execution layer that's able to do tasks for you as well. So our agent layer can read from that company brain directly and set up tasks through our workspace Kanban orchestrator. And that is exactly what we use to leverage on a day-to-day basis, whether it's social media content, documentation, creating pitch decks, or creating this slide that this presentation that you guys see in front of you right now. It's all been accomplished through Agently. And yeah, so far, honestly, it's been a great journey. I'm not gonna take too much time here since we only have 10 minutes left, but we're gonna transition. We're gonna move things on to a live Q&A. I'm gonna share with you guys a Discord link for a founders group that me and Omar have created about a couple months ago. This group is for mainly sharing insights, tips and tricks, discussions. We also have weekly calls just to say to discuss maybe pitch deck reviews or just general founder advice, how to really get yourself out there and get things moving. And I'm also going to share our website link where you guys can sign up for an email list. And once you do that, you will guys will get sent out a PDF of our pitch deck that landed us the A16Z interview.
Thank you, Ahmed.
So,
Thank you, Ahmed.
mhm.
Yes, so all you need to do is go to the website. You can get the pitch deck over there by signing up for the waitlist. Or you can also get into the Discord and we can have weekly talks. Some of the Discord members are actually in the call right now. I see some familiar faces. That being said, I want to give you guys 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes to ask your questions, etc. Preferably open you guys' mics and let me just give you the ability to do so. If you have any questions, me and Ahmed are both happy to answer you guys. Let's see the chat.
So first of all, thank you, Omar and Ahmad. Nice presentation, very detailed. So my first question would be about the one I asked in the chat. So if your product can target a B2C, can target either B2C and B2B, is it like advisable to show that in the deck, on the market slide, or it's better to be to have like a razor sharp one ICP that you are sure that you can attain? Because like you said, VC won't invest if you are not aiming to hit big, right? So if you know that you can target both B2B and B2C to make your TAM bigger, like isn't it advisable to put both, even if now your current client are B2C, let's say for example.
Okay, so this is a very good question, honestly, because it kind of elaborates on two paradoxes. Your ICP, your ideal customer profile, has to be so niched down towards your highest intent buyer. What does that mean? So, for example, Agently. Who's the ICP for Agently? Because we're already talking about it. It's very easy for me to use it as an example. I can say in my TAM that my ICP is any founder and any sort of level and any sort of jurisdiction. My TAM there is like $1 trillion. Now I'm $1 trillion problem solver, but that's not realistic. And at the end of the day, that shows that I didn't do my research. The question is going to be asked, who is my highest intent buyer? To answer the ICP question, which we're going to answer, we're going to go in depth in our next episode. You have to find, and your ICP is always being refined, by the way. Every time you send out a cold email batch, or anytime you start speaking to your users, or anytime you speak to your cohorts and your beta users and your founding members, etc., every time you're trying to understand how do I make my sales process easier, primarily in who is looking for my solution and where can I find them. That could be age, that could be a jurisdiction, that could be a country, that could be a state, that could be someone in a certain industry that's in a certain department that has been working in this department for 2 years. A junior sales operator could be a junior sales operator between the ages of 18 and 35 that's located in Florida, in Miami in specific. That is as niche as you need to go. That's just an example, by the way, in order to satisfy a niche down ICP. And the founders that win are the founders that go into the deep corners of the market and find that ICP to wedge from. And what does wedge mean? It means that I'm going to satisfy this ICP and I'm going to grow outwards because it's faster for me to grow, although it's a smaller market, then if I go and say, oh, I need to satisfy every single person that ever existed, every single founder, and every single jurisdiction that is solving every single problem, and now my TAM is like $20 trillion, but that's not reasonable, and no one's gonna buy into that. So you need to balance between having a right ICP and a big enough TAM. And there are paradoxes. You elaborated on it. There are paradoxes, but your ICP itself has to be big enough for VCs to invest in. So if your ICP, and that's not to say that you have to enlarge in your ICP to satisfy VCs. If the nature of your company has a ICP that's small and you do not have a plan to, let's say, wedge from that and go bigger, quote unquote, then you're most likely not fit to raise with a VC. If my product is B2C and B2B, I need to look at who's going to be my fastest buyer, which buyer has the highest lifetime value, etc. Who is going to have the highest or lowest cost of acquisition, etc. So you need to go look at all these different things, and these different things are not available out there. That's the nature of the market we're in. We're not building SMBs here, like a travel agency or a pool management company or something that has abundance of research so you can make your bets calculatable. You're in a startup environment. You're a pioneer. You're building something that either existed and you're trying to enhance on it, or you're inventing something that has never existed before. Okay, each one of them have their own pros and cons. But that's up to you to distribute, to build, to find users, to answer these questions that you're asking me, and in order to see if your company is big enough to actually raise with VCs. Not every company is, and not every company needs to. You can bootstrap a lot of companies, especially now with AI. Don't feel like, oh, I need to build something just to raise. But if you're going to raise, just so you don't waste your time, find out who's gonna be the one giving. Is it private equity? Is it a VC? Is it a loan? Is it a line of credit? Is it an angel investor, etc.? Those questions are answered only by the traction data that you get from actually doing what you need to supposed to do, what you're supposed to do. Sorry. I hope that answers your question, Cyril.
Yeah, yeah, that answered my question. Thank you.
No problem. Does anyone else have any question? Hmm.
I do have another question though.
Shoot.
So, you mentioned that Agently right now was not the first idea you had. Like, and Hamad kind of explained the process of from idea A to idea Z, which is Agently right now. How did you get the signal to actually pivot? And you said that you didn't get any good like positive feedback about the first agent builder you had. Um, did you do like a massive campaign to get like enough feedback to pivot, or was it gut feeling?
So it's a mix of both. And it's more of a mix of gut feeling than it is even from data. And that's a very good concept that we're going to be covering also coming soon. You don't have the luxury of data, unfortunately. You have to move very quickly. So you don't have the luxury of sitting around and trying out different A and B testing campaigns and trying to market here, trying to market there, trying out YouTube and Reddit and all these free sort of mediums. You don't have the luxury. There's someone else who's moving 10 times as fast as you, who's found the answer and is distributing like a fucker. So you don't have the luxury of sitting around and waiting for data. And that's something me and Ahmed always struggle with because you're making decisions based off little to no data, but that's all the data that you have at the moment, and you know that you need to make a decision. A quote I like to live by: a lack of decision making is better than making the wrong one. At least when you make the wrong one, you get a bit of data saying it's the wrong one, so you can pivot back to the option B that you had, rather than being stuck in between them and waiting around month or 2 or 3 months, not knowing where you need to go and which direction you need to take. So don't be afraid to make the wrong move because when you know that when you make the wrong move, at least you knew that you're making the wrong move, and now you can pivot backwards. In terms of agently in specific, it was an educated guess based off of, and I wouldn't say our agent builder had no traction. It just was being outmarketed by other people, and that's just because we were waiting too long. Our gaps between each sprint and talking to the users, and even we found the wrong ICP, and there was a lot of different problems, which we were both probably very thankful for, because we learned a lot from them. But it came from guessing so every AI lab and every VC, every piece of capital is being spent on one promise. It's AGI at the end of the day. And for AGI to exist, there are certain things that need to happen. So you can go from infrastructure, electricity, cooling, etc. You need that. You need powerful AI models, but we already know those things are already covered by Anthropic, etc. ChatGPT, OpenAI, whatever, etc. And you need the five senses that humans have. So context, being able to ingest context. And ultimately, when we looked, when we zoomed out a little bit and we looked at where context has got in the industry, there was a huge lack because everyone was just querying the model and using some bullshit RAG in order to, not even RAG, like RAG was not even used that much anyway, except by B2B. But on a customer end, no one was really worrying about the context. And and then when we're like, okay, we're gonna build something because we're kind of already building something in context already, which is context-aware moderation agents. And we already had like that one step in front to understand the context, sorry, and Ahmad kind of carried that vision there. Um, we wanted to expand on that vision and create a workspace. So we were using ClickUp and we were using Notion and we have all these different apps and all these different datas there. And we know that we need to move fast and we don't have much data, like we were saying in the last question that you asked me. So what we wanted to do is create the ultimate weapon for the founder to orchestrate their agents in the best way possible because we knew agents are getting very good. Even 6 months ago, they were perfect. But they did not know what the hell was going on in your business. They did not have context on why this data exists. For example, I have a marketing campaign. My marketing campaign goes out on Twitter and YouTube, and then I see a rise in Stripe revenue, and then I see an influx of user activation on my post hog, and then I see an influx of emails asking for a refund. All these different data points all tie back into one marketing campaign. So they're not separate pieces of data. They're all connected. And in order for you to make better decisions while orchestrating agents, those agents need to know as much context as you do, and even more. So we built the workspace, the last workspace that founders like me and Ahmad would ever need. And it's of course iterative, but we knew who our ICP was, we knew how big the market was, we knew this is the billion-dollar question in order to make agents actually usable in the workplace. We knew that enterprise, we knew that small and medium-sized companies, we knew that every single small founder is gonna pursue having a brain of sorts, and we wanted to be at the forefront of building it. And we took a wild guess based on what I just told you, and we have a head start over the whole market, especially in the automated brain sector, because no one has yet to build an automated brain. Every single brain that's been built has been manual. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem, no problem. Does anyone else have anything they want to ask? Any sort of curiosity? All right, it seems like it's not the case. Okay, I see someone open their mic. Frank, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just had a simple question. First of all, thank you for taking time to do this presentation.
My pleasure.
I was wondering, like, what are like some common, let's say, like pitch deck red flags that might signal to an investor that a founder hasn't really done their homework and they're just asking for money, like they're not prepared enough. Like, what are some common red flags that you've seen or experienced in the past that might signal that you haven't done your homework?
Definitely, definitely. So first one, being over 10 slides, you're already out of the pile. Like they won't even read what you have. If you have like 10, 12, I mean, sorry, 11, 12, 13, 15, if you're over those amount of slides, you're out of the pile. They don't even look at your pitch deck. So that's what I would say is the biggest mistake most founders do because they want to explain everything. Second thing is, even with those 10 slides, even if they abide by that, it's full of clutter. So it's all full of verbal fluff. You're not actually pitching with intention. You're trying to market rather than trying to speak and pitch. And that kind of turns the investor off maybe one or two slides in. They'll just throw you out of the pile over there. Third thing is you're not incentivizing the reader to continue. So if each slide is not banking off the next one and the next one banking off the one before it, etc., then you're gonna lose the reader at some point in your pitch deck. So they might be interested for two, three, four, five slides just because of your thesis or your meta, but then you lose them before you make them curious enough to book the next call in order to ask you more questions and elaborate on your pitch. Third thing is you're blurting out everything they need to know without them having to meet you. This is a sales tactic, by the way. And when you're trying to do sales, whether that's enterprise or for founders, etc., you can do this for yourself as well. You need to, like I said this during the actual presentation, you need to leave enough room for curiosity. If you give everyone all the information they need, then they don't need anything from you anymore. And now they're stuck thinking about what you have to say rather than facing your sale right then and there. So if I give you everything you need, then there's nothing for you to imagine. So if I just talk about outcomes, let's say right now I was pitching you guys Agently. I want you all guys to use Agently because you guys are all founders. If I just spoke about the tech and what it does, then you guys might, some of you might be technical enough to understand what the outcome is. Some of you guys might be bored, whatever. But if I just tell you, you can 10x your growth, you can do this, you can do that, and you might be like, oh, who's this guy? He's bold. Why is he saying this? And if I combine that with good social proof, oh, I'm from Harvard. I did my Harvard master's right now, or I came from OpenAI. Then you're like, okay, this guy's bold and he has the experience to back it up. Let me hear him out. And then on the next call, it's warm. It's no more cold because on the next call, you already know who I am. I already penetrated your curiosity, basically. And now I have the ground to speak as much as I want because I already won you over by the time you were curious enough to book the next call. But if I gave you all the information at the beginning and I was technical and I was like saying all these terms and even if I was wearing my marketing cap and being like, yeah, we're revolutionary, we do all these different things, and we never talk about how these things that are applied to you, then the sale is never going to be made. So same thing goes for investors. So I think these are the top three things that um, really differentiate pitch decks. And at the end of the day, the pitch deck isn't the groundbreaking thing that you think it is. It's just the key to a door. And then the pressure is on when you come in and you become the pitch deck. You're a talking pitch deck when you're literally interviewing with someone who is holding $1 million over your head, minus or plus a couple of 100K. So stay concise, stay, always develop curiosity. Don't talk more than you should. Don't write more than you should. That's for you and for the pitch deck itself. And always have a sequence of events. It's a story. So whether you're speaking about yourself or you're speaking about your product, you always want to have it in like in a chronological sort of order in order to keep the person interested and wanting more. So that's what I would say to that question.
That was a perfect answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Frank.
Mhm.
Anyone else have any questions? Frank, if you have another question, you can shoot, don't worry. All right.
I'll save it for next session.
Next session is going to be about revenue. So
Okay.
we'll keep it there. All right. I'll end up with one last thing. One last thing is there are three different sorts of startups. You have the emulator, you have the creator, and you have the inventor. And each and every single sort of startup needs certain things in order for you to raise capital. The emulator needs a moat in distribution and customer service or a user experience, etc. So your differentiator there is not the actual product because you're just emulating someone else. It might be that you have previous experience in this industry, etc. So I can just create a, and I have no examples in my head, but there's so many different restaurants that sell falafel, for example. What differentiates each falafel place from each other? Let's say they had all the same product. It could be how the person treats you, how close it is to your house, how cheap it is, etc. So when you're an emulator, you have different levers to play around with, and you're more judged by your traction. So if your emulator, if your solution exists widely in the space and you're emulating it and starting it at new, then you need loads of traction to raise capital, loads of it. Okay, we're talking about 100K in the next 3 months, 100K in subscriptions, and we're talking about MRR here, not even ARR. You might need LOIs with enterprise, for example, if you're an AI agency, for example, because there's many AI agencies. And AI agencies are a hard startup to invest in, by the way, just for everyone to know. If you're a creator, you're taking a previous technology and enhancing it just a little bit, or you're combining two different technologies together. Okay? And that is mainly dependent on industry knowledge. So I worked as a wholesaler for 8 years, and now I'm creating a marketplace, for example, or I was a robotics engineer and I'm doing this, this, and that. I'm combining these two different things because it's a area in the market that no one has seen before, and that depends on your you have to have a lot of traction as well, but it's more dependent on your how well you know the market and why your thing exists, why your solution exists, and why it didn't exist and now it should exist. And if you're an inventor, you're probably depressed, most probably, like me. And you're sailing towards a continent that doesn't exist, and there's no research, there's nothing, and you're creating something that did not exist before. That does not need much traction. So if I'm inventing it, again, pros and cons. Each and every one of them has pros and cons. So if I'm trying to invent something that did not exist, in order to prove that it must need funding, I need theoretically less amount of traction because it doesn't exist yet. So if I'm building for the future and people are already, like for example, YC has a thesis that this needs to exist, then they're gonna likely invest in me even if I had 500 users or 100 users even. If I have $10,000 in MRR a month, I'm more investable and I have a higher valuation than the emulator that has 100K. You understand? So each and every single sort of like a tier of startup has different challenges and has different requirements in order for you guys to raise. So know which one you're in so you can focus on the areas that the VCs are looking for. Given that you have a big enough time, you have the market, you have the traction, you have the story down, make sure that you understand which level you're in order for you to highlight the things that these VCs are looking for in order to invest in you. All right. I think we're gonna end it there. Appreciate everyone who's joined up. I hope to see you guys on the next one. We'll keep you guys updated on the Luma and we'll send you emails for the next episodes. If you guys want to follow us, let me send our socials real quick. Give me 1 second. I forgot my own LinkedIn and give me 1 sec, sorry. So if you want to follow us on our socials, it's right here. Here's my LinkedIn and here is my Twitter. And hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Here we go. There we go.
Thank you, Omar.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Bye bye.